Welcome everyone to this Training Academy for Politicians on Adaptation and Mitigation. I'm very happy to have all you around the screen, hopefully sometime soon in person. This is a training academy that is co-organized by CEMR PLATFORMA, which I represent. I'm advisor on global agendas on climate and SDGs, then also by the UCLG Learning Office, and they will be introducing themselves very soon, and also by the UN initiative Making Cities Resilient 2030. So these three organizations are very happy to welcome you all around here. We'll be organizing two sessions, and you have seen in the agenda that we have two blocks. One block today will have a focus on adaptation with the keynote speech from Jaroslav Misiak. Then we will be using some games and some Mentimeter questions so we get to know us a bit more. And then in the afternoon, well, in the second session today, we will have some peer reviews of some climate resilience hubs. And then a presentation of the policy facility of a European initiative, which is called Covenant of Mayors. And then tomorrow we will have a follow-up session. So it's not a one or the other, it's a follow-up in case you want to have the full picture. We'll have this follow-up session with a more in-depth presentation on mitigation aspects of climate. And then we will also have another Mentimeter with questions to get to know each other a bit more and some interactive games. So you can put your knowledge in practice as well. And then we will follow the session with financial information, where you can find funding, different sources of financing, and different actors that can also help you out in your search for funding and also to help you prepare maybe projects. Okay, just for practical reasons, we are a high number of participants. This is mainly targeted training for European and Central Asia politicians, but we have seen in the registration form that there are people from all over the world, and many of you are experts, so it's very good that you're there, because it's good that experts and politicians, they get together to get the full knowledge. And the main goal of this session is to get inspiration, to get food for thought, and to give you some tools and share best practices so politicians can develop better strategies, maybe more integrated strategies, and also learn from each other and from different parts of the world. The training session today and tomorrow will cover climate adaptation and mitigation. So not because we have a talk on adaptation or another mitigation means that we need to tackle that separately. It's a whole package. So I hope that you get good information back home. This session is going to be recorded, so you know, and we will be doing some minutes after the session, and we will be sharing this with everyone. I have seen also in the comments that you have all put in your registration forms that some people might need some kind of justification or diploma, so please contact me directly so I can send it to you. And also thank you for all the comments that we have received, because going through all of those, we've got more than 100 comments. You can see that there is a huge need for knowledge sharing. This will be my main conclusion, and you want to learn from each other. So I think that these online tools that we have nowadays are very useful and very valuable to also learn from each other. So I hope that you find this session useful and practical. And then because we're a high number of participants, we have also dedicated moments for questions and answers. So we'll be giving the priority to the European politicians present. But you can also put your questions in the chat. We have colleagues monitoring the chat, and we can make sure that we gather the questions, and maybe we can give some joint answers during the question and answer session. So without any further delays, I would like to give the floor to Marlène Siméon, which is the director at CEMR. CEMR is the Council of European Municipalities and Regions. And Marlène is going to give us some welcome remarks. So Marlène, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eva, and thank you very much, colleagues, for organizing such a session. Welcome to everyone to this training academy on climate change. And especially to our elected, local elected politicians that are here today with us to address a major issue for local and regional governments. Today in Belgium, it's almost 30 degrees. On Saturday, we'll have 34 degrees. So I think this is really exceptional for Belgium, but maybe it will become the norm. So I think the discussion of today is really important to address how to ensure livable environment to people in our territories. Fighting climate change is a multiple challenge for our society, and supporting territorial leaders in this climate and energy transition is a priority for CEMR and its members. Our members are the national associations of local and regional governments. And of course, we are working with PLATFORMA in organizing those kind of trainings to have and get inspiration from other territories all across the world. Our multi-annual strategy is based on the 2030 agenda, and with the aim to achieving the SDGs in territories by 2030. And climate change is, of course, at the core of any strategy related. Firstly, the future climate change impacts can only be prevented by early and deep cuts of greenhouse gas emissions, which requires to change our models of consumption, production, and our approach to our living environment and nature. The Paris Agreement, as you know, adopted in December 2015 and entered into force in November 2016, has set its main objective of reducing greenhouse gas emissions and land use change to keep global average temperature increase well below 2 degrees compared to pre-industrial levels, and to pursue the efforts to limit the temperature increase even further to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Beyond that, the risk of dangerous and unpredictable climate change increases significantly, and the cost of adaptation escalates. And it's not me inventing this, it's the IPCC, which is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the United Nations body for assessing the science related to climate change, which is alerting on those topics. Secondly, with climate change already happening, society faces a parallel challenge of having to adapt to its impact, as a certain degree of climate change is inevitable throughout this century and beyond, even if global mitigation efforts over the next decades prove to be successful. Adaptations aim at reducing the risk and damage from current and future harmful impacts cost effectively or exploiting potential benefits. Adaptation action has become an unavoidable and indispensable complement to mitigation action. So today, the goal is to exchange information among politicians so you can get inspired for the development of your own climate strategy, plans and actions, and bearing in mind the various also European and international contexts. So the European Green Deal, for instance, the European Adaptation Strategy, the Paris Agreement, of course, including with the results of the COP26 and COP27, but also the Sendai framework, among others, global agenda. So this training academy is actually inspired by our work in the urban agenda for the EU, where CEMR led the action called Training Academy for Politicians. And it resulted in the production of a manual after having held 6 academies between 2019 and 2020. So maybe we can share the link to this manual in the chat as well if you are interested. Last but not least, the Making Cities Resilient 2030 initiative is one of our co-organizers today with UCLG. And for those who haven't heard about this initiative yet, it's a global coalition of organizations coming from the UN system, local authorities, associations, NGOs, with a goal to work with cities and municipalities on resilience to ensure that they become inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable by 2030. So it offers different set of tools as well as access to peer learning materials. And we invited you today to join this initiative as well and to have access to these resources. So I wish I stop here, but I wish you a successful training. I would stay the whole morning, so I'm really happy to join this conversation. Be prepared as well for lively sessions and interesting debates and interactive games with my colleagues. So let's meet again in COP27 as well in Egypt, and let's come with concrete local action. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks a lot, Marlene. Brilliant introduction and very inspiring. So thank you very much for this. You've referred to the manual that we prepare for this academy, so I will be sharing in the chat, but you have also got a background note with all the hyperlinks to these initiatives that Marlene has been mentioning, and also all the speakers that will be intervening today and tomorrow have also contributed to this background note. So this is to facilitate you looking for the information and finding it easily. Okay, so thank you very much for this, Marlene. Now we will go to a quick Mentimeter exercise to know who is around the screen, to know what region in the world you're from, how much you know about mitigation, adaptation, where you put the focus on. It's just gonna take 5 to 6 minutes, not more. So you can either connect to Mentimeter through your GSM, or you can also use your own screen of the computer to respond to the questions. This is the code. I will read it: 13247234. Okay, so 13247234. So you can access the Mentimeter, and we have, I think it's 5 questions. And we will be showing the results on the screen as we speak. So we will be showing you the first question, and please feel free to respond, and you will see the results immediately. And also the responses will be in the minutes of this meeting. So the first one is, what region of the world are you joining from? And we'll give maybe 30 seconds per question.
Early for Americas and Caribbean. Early in the morning. Good to see you this morning.
Good morning, or good afternoon to some, and thanks for making the effort to other parts of the world. Also from East Africa, yeah, we've got all continents. That's very good. Okay, so we see that mainly is Europe and Central. We hear some echo from someone. Maybe those who are not speaking, you can mute yourself. Okay, so we see basically that majority is from Europe and Central Asia, but we've got a high number as well from Asia Pacific, you know, Arab states, Sub-Saharan Africa, and America. So we have all continents. That's very good. So if we can move to the next slide. In one word, what does climate mitigation refers to? You have another question on adaptation. So this is just mitigation, reduction of CO2 emissions. So what is one word that would make you think of climate mitigation for you? Well, surviving like this. Can you, Juan Carlos, resend the link to the Mentimeter? Some colleagues lost the connection. And
it's in the chat.
Yeah. Okay, it's in the chat now. You can use either your GSM or the screen. Well, I didn't know that climate mitigation meant all these words. That is exciting to see how each of us interprets, and because we all have different knowledge of climate change, and we come from different backgrounds. So we've got from students to practitioners to politicians. So each of us has a different understanding. So we can maybe stop here. Okay, so we can see, Juanca, so can you go back just 1 second, Juanca, to see the main word that appeared? I think I could see reduction. Okay, so it's reduction and CO2 reduction. So that's quite equal. Okay, and save energy. So we have a good knowledge. So we're in the right room. Good. Can we move to the next one? So what is your current position? And here you can either answer, from the options there, because not all of us are politicians, but it's good to know who is around the table as well. So we see a lot of local and regional governments associations. Good. Public officers and elected officials, they're more or less even. Civil society as well, academia, okay. So that's good. I think that is good that different sectors are all represented here. So it's not just one main group. So even if we are talking to politicians, but it's good that all these groups are also interested in following this. So that really gives a clear signal of the high interest from all sectors. So this is very good for politicians. So you see that you have a nice support from all sectors. But we see the resources like the local and regional governments associations, they are the highest, but it's not the highest number, it's the highest in this screen. Okay, perfect. Juanca, can we move to the next one? So now it's a similar question to before, but in what word? What does climate adaptation mean to you? Prepared, yes. Well, we see that resilience comes high, more prominent. Okay, so we can see in general, we're going to close in 5 seconds. So we see that for you, adaptation refers to resilience. So good answer, and not a quite right answer. But of course, it's just also impressive, as we saw with the mitigation concept, that it's not just one word, it's a very large concept. Good. So we see resilience is the word that comes more prominently. Okay, so we're gonna close this question, okay? And then the last question is, in your city, how much of a priority is, you have 4 options: raising awareness about climate mitigation, taking actions on climate mitigations, or raising awareness about adaptation, or taking actions about adaptation. And you can score from 1 to 5 in each of the questions. So we see quite an even response in all these priorities. Okay. We give 1 more minute and we close this question. No, okay. Maybe we can close it because we already have a general idea of how much of a priority is in your city or your organization. And it's really a very even number, an even percentage. So that's a good indication of where you put in the priority. Now you need to materialize, but at least theoretically speaking, this is the priority, which is very good. And we see from these results is that now you're not giving more priority to mitigation than adaptation. Because in the past, when we started in Brussels, at least when we started discussing or talking about adaptation, people were not aware of what that was, and everyone was concentrating on taking action on mitigation. Now it's very good that we see, equal importance. So that's a very good signal. Now, and also because people are understanding more and more what adaptation is. Okay, so maybe we can close the Mentimeter questions here. So many thanks for sharing this useful information. So we know now who's around the table screen, and we know how much we know about this and how much we want to learn and where we want to put the priority. So thanks for this exercise. And now I'm going to give the floor to Jaroslav Misia. He's the director of the Research Division on Risk Assessment and Adaptation Strategies at the European Climate Change Center in Italy. He's also part of the United Nations Disaster and Risk Resilient Science and Technology Advisory Group. And he's also been participating in the World International Mechanism on Loss and Damage. He's also ambassador of the European Climate Pact, and many other things. And he's also a colleague of mine who I had the pleasure to work with in Italy, and he's going to give us some indications and information about adaptation, what that means to us, what are the aspects on adaptation at European level, also at United Nations level, and then some ideas where we can copy from in order to improve our strategies. And then Jaroslav, you have the floor. After his presentation, he will be speaking for about 15-20 minutes, and then we will open up a session on questions and answer addressing politicians. So all the politicians, please feel free to use the chat to put your questions, and also those non-politicians, please also use the chat, and we'll try to maybe resume the questions in one block. Thank you very much. So Jaro, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Eva, and thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure and honor being able to give you this this keynote. So I will be focusing on the evolution of adaptation thinking and highlighting what we need adaptation, what is being done at global level and European level, and what the opportunities are for you and everybody else. So adaptation, you have answered the question. For most of you, adaptation is about building resilience. So in formal terms, adaptation is how we respond to already observed impacts of climate change and how we anticipate the impact of climate change in the future. Currently, our understanding of adaptation is not only somehow adapt to what will happen because of the climate change, but also use this opportunity to develop in a way that is sustainable, that exploit the opportunity, address the deeply rooted reasons for environmental, economic, or social inequalities. So it's really the active element in the adaptation. That means we are trying to address the inequalities and resolve the underpinning factors of climate-related risk. Adaptation might be incremental. That means we continue a little bit with the measures that have been already implemented and have been proved to reduce the impacts and climate risk to some extent. But of course, we have now reached the understanding that the incremental action is not sufficient, and what we really need is a step change, a radical change in the way how we conceptualize development, how we understand development, and how we understand the global environmental change. Adaptation is not limitless. That should be very clear. There are some limits to adaptation. We call them soft if they are barriers that can be overcome, something like by better climate governance or risk governance, or hard constraints to adaptation, where there is no way how to adapt to even additional degree of global warming, for example, for small island states and the sea level rise. There's no way to adapt to the changing sea level, if not by significant disruption of communities and relocation, for example. We speak about maladaptation. That means there are actions that have negative consequences, unintended consequences that have been well thought at the beginning, but perhaps they played out in a different way, or they were based on insufficient support from the local communities or the regions. So adaptation, we almost feed into what we call climate resilient development, and that's the same also for disaster risk communities. When we speak about building back better or building forward better after the disaster strike, it means climate adaptation is not a policy area or practice on its own, but it's a part of sustainable development. Do we need adaptation? I mean, even if we stopped emitting any additional greenhouse gases right now, the level of warming that we have experienced, that we are set to experience in the future, will not disappear suddenly. They will stay for centuries or millennia. This is because the greenhouse gas concentration in the atmosphere is a stock, is basically remains in the carbon cycle, remains in the atmosphere, and naturally will be reduced only very slowly. It takes a lot of time to reduce by natural processes the greenhouse gases once they are emitted to the atmosphere. Of course, there are some ways how to actively remove greenhouse gases from atmosphere. This is currently very costly, but we do look into that as well. There are some scenarios that count with overshot and then active removal, but the natural removal is very slow. So unfortunately, the climate change that we already observe is here to stay, and we really need to deal with that. IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, has just released the 6th assessment report. The panel is working in 3 working groups. So the working group 1 is looking into how the climate system is changing and how the extreme are changing. That report was released last year. In February this year, the IPCC released the working group 2 report, and that is really the ultimate synthesis of what we know about the climate change impact, what we know about the effectiveness of climate adaptation strategies and measures, and where we stand with adaptation. And the working group 3 has released the report in March, and that's focusing on mitigation strategies and the climate action leading to reducing the greenhouse gases. So the most prominent figure probably from the IPCC Working Group 2 report is this, we call it burning embers. So on the left side, you see the level of warming, global warming that we have already experienced up to now, and the warming that we will get when pursuing certain climate or development scenarios. So that might reach up to the increase of global temperature by 5 degrees by the end of this century, or as little as 1.5 degree, which is compatible with the Paris Agreement. So this is the range of the warming that we can expect in the future based on our mitigation action. And on the right side is those are the burning embers. They have a level of risk. This is the color scale ranging from yellow, which is moderate, red, which is high, and very high, almost unacceptable. That's the violet. And then you have different areas that are, or systems that might be impacted by climate change. For example, unique and threatened systems, extreme weather events, distribution of impacts, and so those are aggregated impacts across the globe. And you see, depending on the different level of global warming, where we stand in terms of the different levels of risk. And you might see that there are huge differences even between the global warming of 1.5 and 2 degrees. So those are the goals that are included in Paris Agreement. And you see, the 1.5 across the different areas. It'll highlight moderate or high risk, while 2 degrees is most of the aggregate impacts. The risk is between high and very high already. So this is one introduction that we call the reason for concerns for different sectorial impacts. And then you have also the impacts on terrestrial and freshwater ecosystem, the same logic, the same color code of the risk, and different ecosystem and different impacts. And then impact on risk to ocean and ecosystem. Those figures highlight if we do not adapt, so they do not have adaptation in that, but to highlight the impact of adaptation, of how it shifts the level of risk. The figure which is on the bottom side of the slide includes 3 type of scenario: limited adaptation, incomplete adaptation, and proactive adaptation. And this is the degree to which we really take the action in order to adapt to the ongoing impacts. And you can see it on also visually that the level of risk are changing. So the adaptation in some areas help to avoid at least the really unacceptable type of impacts. In other areas, the area that we can really influence, the actions and impact of those actions is limited. So this is very important to adaptation is not unlimited. Right. So adaptation, in a couple of slides, I will cover how adaptation has been captured in the UNFCCC processes. The UNFCCC is the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. It was adopted by 1992. Initially, in this context, adaptation was seen as an excuse not to undertake a strong mitigation action. So there were fear that discussing adaptation might undermine the willingness of the countries to significantly reduce greenhouse gases. And that was, roughly for 10 or 15 years. So in the early 90s or early 2000s, the IPCC focused on impact assessment based on long-term scenarios, global scenarios, and building the knowledge and starting to plan the adaptation processes in the context of least developed countries. In 2005, we had the Nairobi Work Program on Adaptation, which is a knowledge to action hub on adaptation and resilience. But it wasn't until 2010 when the adaptation was put on the same footing as the mitigation. From 2010 onwards, we have 2 specific objective of climate actions, and this mitigation and adaptation with the same level of priority. In 2013, we have the Warsaw Mechanism, International Mechanism for Loss and Damage. Loss and damage emerged as the 3rd pillar of the climate negotiation. And in 2015, we have the global goal both on adaptation and on mitigation. Now we are working on how to operationalize, how to agree on what does it mean, how to measure, how to define the goal on adaptation, and how to measure the progress made. This is part of the global stocktake exercise. That means we will look into what has been done in different countries, regions. We will assess, evaluate, and report back to what is the performance, what has been the success of adaptation and mitigation. This is called global stocktake. So on the right side, you see a little bit more explain the process of putting adaptation on high priority level. This is taken from a very interesting publication on UNFCCC of Adaptation Committee. They looked into the past achievements of adaptation. Now, adaptation is, of course, not isolated from the Sustainable Development Agenda, especially from the disaster risk reduction. And this is on the left side when you see this, the common conceptualization of disaster or climate risk as the interplay of the vulnerability, exposure, and hazard. Exposure are the elements at risk that we value. Vulnerability is how those elements at risk might be damaged by climate-related hazards, and hazards are those that you can think of: drought, floods, hail, and so on, sea level rise. They might be fast onset or slow onset. Fast onset are basically a big flood, for example, occurring within days. Slow onset is sea level rise or land degradation or soil sealing as well. So you can see the climate change is increasing the intensity and frequency of climate-related hazards that put exercise the pressure on the elements at risk, our communities, our economic systems, our livelihoods, and undermine the efforts that we put into development in the past. So climate change is increasing the poverty along with other inequalities that might contribute cumulatively to increase inequalities and poverty. So from these, it's very clear that adaptation is an integral part of Sustainable Development Goal, and you might recall the Sustainable or Climate Resilient Development Pathways. So this is also recognized as a specific Sustainable Development Goal 13, climate action, both mitigation and adaptation. Climate adaptation is also very closely linked to the disaster risk reduction, and this is for very simple reason. I mean, there are two communities that share the same concerns, common value, principles, and challenges. So they both act in a similar way and have, over the years, they have also cross-fertilized the development in the respective areas. What they have in common is, of course, the risk assessment is the cardinal part of it. They have governance, risk governance, how to manage the adaptation and disaster risk reduction, finance, risk finance, nature-based solution as the promising win-win situation in many cases, how to address the disaster risk and climate change, and also the efforts needed to systematically evaluate what has been done and how it has been done, what was the success, what we called monitoring, reporting, evaluation, or learning from the past efforts, what we can learn for the future. In European context, that might be interesting to two-thirds of you. So Europe has started to look into adaptation along with UNFCCC context roughly around 2006, 2007. The white paper on adaptation was published in 2009, and it was in 2013 where the European Union has adopted its first EU adaptation strategy. It addressed a number of things. So if you are familiar with the governance and the competencies of European Commission, I mean, it cannot really, it works on the subsidiarity principles. So it can invest into coordinated action and providing certain resources to all member states and regions. But of course, it's the member states that have the full legislative and regulatory power in implementing environmental policies. So the first adaptation strategy has made a huge progress that was evaluated in 2016, 2018. I included here also as a very interesting way how to measure the progress. Country fishes. Those are synthesis made for specific countries, what has been done, how it has been done, what has been achieved. This might be a model for the global stocktake and the UNFCCC. At least it was positively received by the parties in the Bonn Climate Change Conference that just will be closed by the end of this week. So what has achieved this strategy is that the member states have created the climate adaptation strategies, adaptation plans, and invested in mainstream adaptation into a number of legislative frameworks. In 2021, the European Commission has published a new and more ambitious European adaptation strategy, which is a part or complements European climate law that was published and entered into force last year. And the new adaptation strategy put emphasis on smarter, faster, and more systemic adaptation. So we have learned, so it's a higher level of ambition. It aims at transformational approaches to adaptation. We have organized together with European Commission a high-level policy event, which is recorded, and you can easily access that and listen to the intervention from the policy officers at the European Commission, from the civil society organization, and from the academia. The adaptation strategy has promoted a number of knowledge building and knowledge sharing. The key portal that is available on adaptation is Climate Adapt. There is a one-stop portal for sharing information, models, and tools, and it's managed by European Environment Agency. There are a number of other hubs of knowledge where you can access climate-related risk information, or see the projected impacts of climate change, download the data and use for your specific purposes, and also solutions, how to address the different impacts. So I highlight that IPCC has also created an interactive atlas. This is for the first time that you can not only read the synthesis of the knowledge, but really also put your hands on the data and see what does it mean for your country. Risk assessment is a cardinal part of adaptation strategies and disaster risk reduction. I already mentioned the risk, how it's conceptualized. It's an interplay of hazard, vulnerability, and exposure. But into the future, we will look more and more also into the responses, how we respond to the climate change, because the risk arises also from unintended consequences of some of our responses. So in the future, the framework will include as the risk driver, the response, the policy response itself. European Commission has also a very interesting program under the disaster risk reduction, the Union Civil Protection Agenda. It's peer review program, and peer review program of risk management capabilities is looking at different areas of disaster risk reduction and climate risk management, and trying to take the stock of what has been achieved and evaluate how it has been achieved. The other very powerful tool that the European Commission made available, European Union made available for everybody around the globe, is the Copernicus Climate Change Service. It's a cloud computing and data repository portal where you can access, download, and further process your data on climate impacts. And there are a number of demonstrators, there are a number of specific services that translate the generic climate information into a tailor-made and user custom product and knowledge that you can use when you are planning your adaptation. So the climate services are a powerful tools how to translate the wealth of climate information and make it accessible and usable at a local and specific purpose. I will use a couple of minutes to outline the opportunity that we have and that comes with the new adaptation strategy. So Horizon Europe is the research and innovation framework of European Union. It runs from 2021 and 27. The new element of this mission, this program, are research and innovation missions. So we have 5 missions. Tomorrow you will hear about the mission on cities and mitigation. But one of the missions is directly related to climate adaptation. It's called Adaptation to Climate Change, and its vision is to prepare Europe for climate disruption and accelerate the transformation to climate resilient and just Europe by 2030. I have included a lot of information here where you can access the vision document, the implementation plan, and all the information that you need in order to explore those opportunities. But very quickly, what this mission is about, it introduces a transformative ladder. So a set of activities, a sort of a roadmap, starting from assessing risk and opportunities, building locally and regionally grounded partnership, and engage citizens, formulate the adaptation vision, and explore how to get there. And based on those strategic thinking, start looking into small and large-scale testing of innovative solutions and creating impact at scale. And eventually, when the large demonstrator will be grown into cross-border context to deliver impact that is felt across the border in different European regions and member states. So this is the vision, this is the ladder, transformation ladder. And the core of the mission is articulated around key community systems. Key community systems are those that are most vulnerable and extremely important for building the local resilience. And those are social infrastructure, health and well-being, restoring nature, biodiversity and ecosystem services, water management, and rural landscape and food chains. So those are the community system that the the Horizon Europe invites the regions to think about how to advance the adaptation on those, how to test solutions and then bring them to high level. And there are also enabling condition which relates to the data and exploiting the wealth of data knowledge, governance, local economies and livelihoods, education, and behavioral change, and finally, finance. So this is a Horizon Europe program. You will find specific goals at regional or local level. You can participate in consortia, and you can advance your adaptation agenda by entering into the mission and becoming a member of the mission. And that will allow you to benefit from really number of activities and knowledge provided by excellent research and innovation institutions. With that, I would close my keynote. I took a little bit longer than envisaged, Eva, and I apologize for this, and I look forward to your question. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jairo. Grazie mille. I think it was very interesting. So, I'm going to listen to the recording again because, you get so much information. So it takes time to really proceed that. But it's very useful. And I think that you really set up the scene. You also gave information about where to find this, all this data. But I think that you really set up the real framework, where we are, what can we do, what are the possibilities for the local and regional level. So thank you very much for this. And then I've been monitoring the chat, so we've got a few comments and questions. And I would like to start by giving the floor to Fabrizio Rossi, who is our Secretary General at CEMR. So Fabrizio, you have the floor, please.
Thank you very much.
You can turn on the camera as well, so we can all see you.
You should be able to see me right now,
can...
right? Yes, okay. Thank you very much, Eva. Hello, everyone. It's really a pleasure to be with you today. And it is indeed a pleasure to see so many participants. This is indeed a confirmation that this training academy is very needed. I was only able to connect to this session late after the starting, given I was traveling this morning. So I'm also looking forward to have a good look at the recording, Eva. Jaroslav, you were really great in setting the ground for this discussion. And I think that I was able to go through the chat, and there was a point which to me was quite interesting, was made by Vince, because with this training session, indeed, we are mainly targeting local politicians. And indeed, I've seen in the chat coming from Vince a reminder that the adaptation measures, they are costly in the short and medium term, at least. And this is a very important element. So a reflection that probably I would like to develop even further tomorrow, when I will be with you or in further session, will be how we deal with this behavioral element on the ground when dealing with our communities and territories, because indeed the cost of the adaptation measure is reflected in the life of local people. And now there are indeed a few reports already, for instance, that are looking at some European countries, and they are connecting, for instance, the intentions vote at local level and the rising of the intentions vote for far-right parties with the implementation of specific adaptation measures on the ground. So this means, of course, that we really need to, it's not just a matter of like implementing measure, really working on infrastructure, but we need really to prepare our communities, you know, for the uptake of these measures on the ground. And this is absolutely important. Otherwise, you know, the adaptation measures are not a solution in the short term, but they are rather a problem. So indeed, this is a challenge that all our politicians at local level are dealing with. It's how really to deal with this behavioral element on the ground, which is indeed very challenging, a very challenging element. So this is the reflection I would like to share with you, and thank you very much again, Jaroslav. This is really a great presentation, and I'm really looking forward to being with all of you again tomorrow. Thank you very much, Eva, and thank you very much, Eva, for all your efforts you're putting in setting up this session.
Okay, grazie mille, Fabrizio. I don't know, Jaroslav, if you want to quickly react to this, and then I will ask you some further questions from the participants.
Sure, thank you very much, Fabrizio. Yeah, I fully agree. It's quite challenging for a number of reasons. The first is because the climate change is not something, right, that you cover as a sectoral part. Climate change is not even a discipline. Climate change is a bill that we pay for unsustainable past. And with that said, that means it touches upon everything what we do, from budgeting at the local level, from natural resource management, territorial development, and everything. So it's really permits almost any activity that we implement at the local level. And of course, finance is a big issue, but there are a number of financial sources that you in Europe can access to. At the global level, there are other sources. But in Europe, for example, the LIFE program of the European Commission is very interesting. That has now sub-program on adaptation as well. There are regional funds, structural and investment funds coming from European Union that, if managed in a smart way, they can contribute hugely to advancing the adaptation. So there are a number of opportunities. I mean, now to list others would really require a lot of time, but I agree, absolutely, it's a challenge, and there are excellent examples how this challenge might be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jaro. And then I would like to tackle some of the questions that I've seen in the chat. Someone would like to know if you can expand more about what is systemic adaptation. You can explain that a bit more. And also I've got comments on the responsibility for mitigation. Something that this is like more ethical responsibility to climate, biodiversity and network to protect our planet. And some also think that there is a problem with science because some officials, some politicians, they still think that science is wrong and mitigation is just a huge amount of additional costs. So they prefer maybe to ignore it. So if you can maybe cover these aspects a bit more, thank you.
Sure, I'd be happy to do so. So the first question was the adaptation. Sorry, it flipped out of my mind. Is it the adaptation was could you repeat the first question, please?
Yeah, one of the questions is if you can expand more on systemic adaptation.
Systemic, sorry, yes, yes, of course. So systemic, what we call, I can give you a specific example. Starting from the risk assessment, right, from the risk, how this risk creates a knock-on effects on other sectors. For example, in Italy, we are now in the quite severe drought situation that started already last year. So it's said now that we are in a situation that we haven't seen for 70 years. So there's a huge ongoing and progressively more intense drought. Now, the drought impacts first the agriculture that was unable to, for example, to irrigate the fields like rice in the early spring to derive the water in order to plant the rice. So there's a irrigation later on in the summer is put at risk because this is very, the current water situation is really dear and we are unable to satisfy all the requests. But it already now touches upon the electricity production. This is thermoelectricity generation, but also here hydropower and so on. So in summer, when we need to irrigate, when we need when we have the peak of energy demand, then we are also in the situation that we cannot satisfy the demand because the renewable or the electricity generation is disrupted. And I could go on using those impacts. Now, knowing that the climate risk have these knock-on effects and spillover effects on other sectors, we really need to manage those risks with the same perspective. So systemic adaptation is means taking into account the connection between both the risk, how they spread, how they impact different economic sectors or policy areas, but also how we address those risks and ensure that the policy options that we put in place in order to mitigate the impacts in one area do not make the risk even more difficult in other places. So this is systemic, means that we really trace down the different impacts, understand the underpinning roots of impacts and vulnerability, and try to address those together, right, with our intervention, policy intervention. So it's including the economic, environmental, and social inequalities, for example, tackling poverty. It's extremely important that adaptation is really taking the core part of the resilient development. Now about the second question, I think you will discuss that tomorrow, more linked to the mitigation. The IPCC is an authoritative source of information. It looked into everything what we know, what has been analyzed. And the IPCC came to the conclusion that the climate change is unequivocally connected to the human intervention. So there's no doubt about that humans are causing climate change. So I would rather question why some politicians or why some people still make this claim that the science is inconclusive, that the science has not delivered the proof it did, right? The science has made that right. So the climate change is a serious threat to the human life, to the development of human societies. Humans are the cause of climate change that we have observed, and what we really need to think about how to urgently and very quickly reduce substantially the greenhouse gases along with the European or the global goals, and how at the same time how we engaged in planning adaptation that might increase our resilience and reduce our vulnerabilities.
Thanks a lot, Jaroslav. And then I've got one more question and one comment. There is a colleague from Stockholm, and he's put in the chat the source for the global source for climate change data, which is available from the World Meteorological Organization. So check the chat, and then you have the hyperlink then. And then we also have another question or comment on from Simeon, and he says that the last year President Biden announced that methane will be added, like CO2, into the National Plan for Climate Change Mitigation. And thus methane is part of the SDGs at the United Nations too at the moment?
Absolutely. So the short answer is yes. The methane is a greenhouse gas on its own right. It's much more powerful than CO2. It causes much higher warming than CO2. So methane need to be addressed through mitigation strategies. There are a number of sources of methane, for example, agricultural livestock production, but also the land use changes and release of methane from the organic matter in the soil. Tomorrow you will have plenty of opportunities to address how to, what are the actions to reduce the methane emission.
Okay. So thanks very much, Yara. So I have one more comment here, and is more a comment from the same colleague who just raised this methane question, and is that there is several interesting technologies for monitoring climate change evolution, and particularly regarding emergent risk. And he thinks that UN and European Union would facilitate more the records and apply of the private sector to as financial support. So this is more a comment. Okay. So I don't see any further comments on the chat. I will have millions of questions, but time is pressing. So I would also like to thank you, Yaroslav, for the very direct speech, but also the very clear answers. It's not always easy to get clear answers from keynote speakers, you know, that have like these big brains, but I think it was very clear from your side. So thank you very much once again. And now I would like to give the floor to one politician, who is Ronan Dantec. I think that you all know him because he's known worldwide, and he's also a senator from the Loire-Atlantique region, and then he's also our CEMR spokesperson on climate. He's also a spokesperson for UCLG. And Ronan has been participating for years on climate change negotiations at UN, and he's also the president of the Climate Change Association. And he's going to set us now the context at European level and what are the barriers and challenges that we have ahead. Also bearing in mind that he is a negotiator in the big UN negotiations, so he also has a very clear insight of this. So Ronan, you have the floor for 8 minutes, if I may say, and then we can pass on to a game section, which will also be very interesting. So Ronan, you've got the floor, please.
Thank you, Eva. You heard me very well. It's okay. Okay, it's a very wide question, and I have just a few minutes. Maybe just some points to open the discussion. For me, the most important question for political people at this moment, it's the necessity to have a new narrative. Few months ago, it was very clear. We had a big problem. We had an enormous threat. It was climate change. And it was very important to mobilize people to tackle climate change. It was clear, it was simple. Today, after the war in Ukraine, the situation changed because we have not just risk for the future of some problem in the present with climate change. We have different risk, different threat for our future. And the war in Ukraine is not with a direct link with climate change. And we have to integrate in our narrative, in our paradigm, this necessity to have response, to have answer for all these risks at this moment. Second, a difficulty with the narrative. Of course, we have mitigation, and the last 20 years, our priority was mitigation. But now we know, and I understand that the weather is very hot today in Brussels, in the south of France too. We have to integrate in our action adaptation at the same level than mitigation. We need to have this new narrative. The opportunity, and it was, I think, the principal message of the climate change summit in North, it's that the response, the answer for all these questions are the same. For example, energy autonomy of Europe, it's a response for climate change, of course, but it's a response in the new geo-strategy situation. And it's a response for some adaptation response too. We have to change our narrative. It's a responsibility of the politician to change the narrative. And my feeling is we are just in the start of this reflection about this new narrative. This is my opening point. Second point, more in link with adaptation, and I preside a committee of France for adaptation strategy, and we have to integrate in the new law in 2033 in France to integrate this new law adaptation strategy for the for the first time at the same level that electricity of climate strategy, mitigation climate strategy. We have to be more clear about our targets. In our speech, sometimes we speak about the 2 degrees, sometimes we focus on 1.5 degrees, sometimes we are in the situation of the risk of 4 or 5 degrees more in the middle of the 20th and 21st century. It's not really clear. I think that we have to show a strategy, and I propose, and I think that it will be the situation in the next 20 years, to focus about an adaptation in the middle of the 21st century with temperature between 2 and 2.5 more. It's important to integrate a scenario, a principal scenario, to adapt our territories in link with this principal scenario. The scenario between 2 and 2.5, I think it's impossible at this moment to reach the target 1.5. It's impossible with the evolution of CO2 emission. But between 2 and 2.5, it is a scenario where there is a global, a world effort to decrease CO2 emission, but it's not, it's a scenario, I think, more not optimistic or pessimistic, a scenario who consider the capacity to decrease really in the 20 next year the CO2 emission. And when we integrate this scenario between 2 and 2.5, we have to cross with scientist message, with scientist study, and after to integrate this in all our policies at the local level. How we build, how we develop the city, of course, to integrate nature-based solution. We have to integrate in all our policy the consequences of climate change. This point for me is very important. We have to decide a common scenario and not to continue to use different targets in different moments in the same meeting. After this opening remark, we have some problems. One clear problem is how we balance adaptation and mitigation. I take one example. We know that in the future, in the next years, we use more air conditioner. And for air conditioner, we need more electricity. And if this electricity is produced with fossil fuel of coal, of course, we increase CO2 emission. We have this kind of difficulty. It's the same, and the last speaker said that for the use of water, for example, it's very difficult to find the balance between the different use. And for all these points, we need a global strategy. We integrate not just adaptation on the side, mitigation is the other side, but to have a global strategy for climate change, adaptation, and mitigation together. And for this, and it's not so easy, I'm sure that we need to have more discussion at the local level. It's a question of democracy. It's a question of involvement of local population with some different interests, with some opposite. And we have to develop democratic mechanism. We have to debate to find the balance between different interests. This point is very important. We need this debate at the local level with the concrete problems of inhabitants. Second point, and I'm not sure to have time for a lot of
just it's not going to an honor because we need to move to the next session.
Okay,
so maybe
and just fun, of course, and you know, Eva, that it's very important, and we discuss a lot this point in climate change meetings. We have a question of investment, of course. We need a lot of money, maybe more loan with very low interest rates and subsidies, with a role of European Investment Bank and other bank at the European level. We have to discuss because we need billions and billions. But I know, I see that we have the capacity of Germany have capacity to find 100 billion for army, which a kind of adaptation with a new world. We need a lot of money, and we need to integrate in this strategy the role of insurance. The role of insurance is key. It's a lot of capacity for investment. It's a capacity to accompany the effort of people with different price for or different economic models. This role of insurance can be integrated in our strategy. So I stop.
Okay, merci Renan. Okay, I know that you would talk to us for hours and days because you have so much knowledge, but it's good that you give us a hint on the situation now and what are the challenges and barriers that we are facing, so we can also find solutions and we can also find some inspiration around the table. Before we move to the next session on the nature-based solutions and renaturing pathways game, which is an interactive session, I would like to just raise a comment that I've seen, and we can maybe discuss later on the day, but it's someone from Somalia that says that Somalia is highly susceptible to the effects of climate change and extreme weather, and these factors are likely to exacerbate existing vulnerabilities and reduce the people's livelihood options. And the question was on how climate change affects peace and security. So I'd just like to launch this, and maybe we can discuss this in the breakout rooms or throughout the day. And also another question is if we can utilize deuterium as a replacement for other energy fuel. So I don't know, Yara, if you could say yes or no to this question. And also we have online a participant, a politician from the Polish Ministry for Climate. Is our colleague Piotr Karnocik, and he just joined very recently. So if Piotr, if you can just say quickly in 10 seconds your experience on climate or on this training, please take the floor, but really brief. And Yara, if you want to answer to this question about the deuterium, if we can use it as a replacement for other energy fuels.
Yeah, I have answered the question of Abshir by a direct message. I mean, that was about the links between climate action and the peace and security. I haven't seen the other question, sorry.
Okay. Okay, no, the other question was about the use of deuterium as a replacement for other energy fuels.
I think this is a question that you might address tomorrow. It's really about mitigation, not about adaptation.
Okay, perfect. So we will take note of this. Pierre, if you want to really take the floor for 3 seconds. Okay, your microphone doesn't work, so we'll solve that later on. So now I would like to thank you all for these questions, answers, feedback, and now I'd like to give the floor to my colleague Juanca, who is an officer at UCLG, United Cities for Local Governments, and he's in the learning unit. So Juanca, you can maybe explain us how this session is going to work, and we will be split in breakout rooms. So please, Juanca, you've got the floor.
Thank you very much, Eva, and thank you very much, Jaroslav, for that introduction to adaptation strategies. And the idea of this exercise that we're going to be engaging on for the next 20-25 minutes is to just kind of have a more kind of entertaining way of looking at nature-based solutions and the potential that they have in terms of adaptation and also synergies that they might have with mitigation and with other benefits that they bring to cities. It is part of the resilience learning modules that we have developed together with UNDRR and UN Habitat at UCLG. And as my colleague was saying, we will be dividing into 5 groups. So there will be 4 breakout rooms and the plenary room where we are at the moment. I will just kind of share you how this renaturing pathway games works, but you will have a facilitator in each of the groups who will guide you through it afterwards. So you will have 4 sample cities from all over the world facing different challenges, and then you will be assigned, each group will be given 4 cards with nature-based solutions in them. So the idea is that for you as a group, you have to match the nature-based solution in the card with the challenge that they can help address from those 4 cities. So you will have 10 minutes. I know it's very short, but it's like a very dynamic way of letting everyone interact and think beyond just listening to make that match between 4 cities and the challenges that they face and 4 nature-based solutions. Each group also has the option of using a joker card. So if you feel that one of the cards, one of the nature-based solutions that you're assigned is not matching the challenge, feel free to propose one new solution that you know of using green infrastructure, blue infrastructure, or other nature-based solutions that you know from. And then at the end of the 10 minutes, we will come back to the plenary, and I will ask one person from each group to present just one of the matches. So 1 challenge and 1 nature-based solutions that they assign to that challenge. No need to present all of the 4 cities, as we won't have enough time for that. So I think that will be it. All of the facilitators are already assigned to each of the groups. We have Sara from the UCLG Learning Director in Group 1. Now I'm actually Claudia from the UCLG Learning Team on Group 2, Fernando on Group 3, and Valeria on Group 4, and the rest will remain here in the plenary with me. So I will open the rooms now, and I will see you back in 10-11 minutes. The rooms will close automatically, so make sure to make the best of those 10 minutes that you will have. See you later.
Thank you, Juanca.
Let's give a couple of minutes for everyone to move, and then we will start in this group. Okay. Let me just have a better view of everyone who is here with me. Feel free to turn on your video camera, as it's usually easier to interact when I get to see you. So
When I see a lot of people unassigned, is the plenary, right?
Yeah, it's okay. I will be facilitating that in the plenary.
Perfect, thank you.
Don't worry, thank you. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. So we will go to group 1. So there will be two groups doing this. And as I was mentioning, we have 4 cities here. We have Kombolcha, where rainfall is increasingly scarce. So they are facing drought and desertification, leading to large-scale migration and conflict among inhabitants. We have Milano, one of the cities with the most air pollution in Europe. In addition, every summer heat waves have been intensifying, significantly increasing the mortality rate among its citizens. We have Farellones, a village in the Chilean Andes in the mountains, located in a high-risk area for landslides. In addition, climate change has increasingly reduced the ski season, affecting the main economic activity for the tourism sector. And then we have Miami, one of the most exposed cities facing wave erosion and flooding during hurricane and storm seasons. In addition, sea level rise due to climate change will severely affect its populations in the coming years. So we have those 4 cities, and we have these 4 cards: community gardens and urban agriculture, green water recycling, forest management, and paving and permeable surface. Is there anyone who would like to suggest one of those cards to any of these cities? Feel free to open your mic and tell me what you think, which nature-based solution should go where, or via the chat also if you prefer.
Hello, Rhoda from Kampala.
Hello.
I suggest forest management for Farellones.
For Farellones, they do have landslides, erosion, so that could help. How would you think that will help?
If they plant forests on the slopes of the mountains, it will reduce soil erosion.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else that would like to contribute?
Maybe for Milano, potentially enhance woodland stream, reduce. Can you? Yeah, you're moving. Yeah.
Which one would you like to put there?
Yeah, I want to put it for Milano.
Forest management or which
No.
of the card?
Yeah. The last one you are moving. Yeah.
This one.
Gray water. Yeah, you said before that Milano has problem with the contamination, and there is many of people they are die of pollution. So I think if we making kind of recycling with good sterilizing for the water, this will decrease maybe the risk.
Okay. Anyone would like to suggest another card?
Yeah, the community gardens issues for urban agriculture, I suppose it can go to Kombolcha. The belief is that I want to believe that work has been done to try and get some underground water for those kind of activities, because I'm thinking there is food insecurity for the generality of the urban dwellers.
Okay. Yeah, there is an issue of lack of water and drought and desertification. But if it's done with climate sensitive or plants that are less water intensive, you could do that. Anyone else? Simeon, would you like to say something? No? No? Okay. Let's see. So we have this one left, paving and permeable surfaces. Miami does have issues of flooding, so this could help to reduce the water flow towards the base. But let me know if you have any different opinions here.
Yeah, maybe I can suggest, I'm Guido from Italy. I can suggest to switch these 2 cards. So to propose community garden and urban agriculture for Milan, and the gray water recycling for Kombolska. So
could you explain why? Yeah.
Because Milan is much suffering about its waves, if I'm not wrong. So in order to reduce this impact, maybe community and city gardens can, and urban agriculture can support this, can face this risk. And from the other side, if you were talking about droughts, maybe the reduce of freshwater consumption can be much more better for this city. But of course, there are all these cards can be used for more seats, of course. But it's just a proposition from my side.
Thank you very much. I don't know if anyone wants to comment on that. Yes, go ahead.
Do you hear me? Yeah. Miami is very interesting because it's specific. It's flat near the sea, and there is, I mean, two possibilities. I will use first community garden and urban agriculture. Community garden because near the sea, you have to stop the sea level rise. You have to stop the problem of hurricane, you know, like in all south. And that means that, for example, like in the Caribbean, it would be good to plant, for example, specific fauna. We can stop, you know, the effect of hurricane or sea level rise. And in another way, I'm not sure if paving is interesting. Paving on permeability surface is interesting. But front of natural disaster, each time after any hurricane or natural disaster, all the job will be lost, you know. Then I really think that community garden would be interesting for Miami.
No, thank you very much. And I think like both you and Guido mentioned something that like, yeah, like part of the game, it's a simplified version of the game where you have to match, you know, one solution to one problem. But in reality, you know, it needs integral approaches, as you both mentioned, using different strategies, different actions. So I'm moving the Joker card here to Miami just to kind of add some of those things, some of the things that you added, including community gardens to Miami. We have 1 more minute. So I have 2 things left to do. One is if anyone else has any remarks, but also I want to make sure that we have someone who can share one of the solutions that we have discussed with the rest of the groups when they come back. So first of all, anyone wants to add anything else?
Good morning. I'm Grace from South Africa. I would like to also look at the Milano site where I see that they are struggling very much with the emission of gases. And I believe climate change mitigation could also tap into that for the sake of mitigating gases that are emitting a lot in that space. And I'd like to just pause there. Thanks.
No, thank you very much. And yeah, like nature-based solutions are usually very openly discussed because they can have both kind of an adaptation benefits, reducing heat, absorbing like kind of some of the floods and like water flows, but they also have a big potential on mitigation by absorbing greenhouse gases. So thank you for adding that. And I would like to propose, since we have 10 seconds, for Simeon to present Miami based on that last comments that you made. If you're okay with that, I will give you the word once everyone comes back. Is that okay?
That's okay.
Okay.
That's right.
And let me just, everyone has, okay, we have still 60 seconds for everyone to come back. So if anyone wants to add anything, please go ahead.
I would like to make a comparison, you know, because of a situation I left, because doing my PhD, I work in New Orleans, you know. I was focused on how the public policy was made to manage the effect of Hurricane Katrina. And littoral areas as like islands are particularly sensitive to climate change. Like in Europe, North Europe, for example, in the Netherlands, you know, they have problem with water sea level rise, and the question of adaptation, sorry, is very, 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 it's complicated. For example, in the Netherlands, they are focused in the area of architecture. Then they are thinking to build a house like in Asia, house underwater, you know.
Yeah.
And
thank you, Simon. Just to, like, if you can wrap up in 20 seconds so that we can move, because I see that everyone is coming back.
Yeah. And in New Orleans, it's strange because in the history, I will be short, for 200 years, the colon came and cut the fauna, which has an impact to reduce the effect of hurricane, you know, and they built New Orleans on wetlands. And now they are thinking to come back in the history. That means they have to plant a fauna which it adapts to wetlands and will have an impact to sea level rise. And that is a kind of adaptation. Sometimes it's not necessary to find innovation, big high tech, but sometimes to go back in the history and to see what was the more efficient, you know. That is the point.
Oh, no, thank you very much. And I think that's actually a great point. And I'm glad that everyone was back here for that. And I will go ahead and give you back the word, but this time to present. Well, it also refers to the challenge that you were mentioning, the case of Miami and the solution that we were discussing in our group. So please go ahead in a couple of minutes so that each group can present one of their challenges. So Simeon, please.
What would you like to do?
To present the solutions that we discussed for Miami.
Yeah, Miami, due to the geographic situation, I mean, I thought about community garden. Garden does not mean only plant, grass, have a beautiful garden, but also that concerns the littoral, you know. I mean, for example, to plant specific fauna like palétuvier, you know, that is a plant which have the capability to live in very salt water. And Miami, when we think about Miami, we think about beach, long beach, and a lot of hotel near the beach. I mean, that is booms, because in the future, it depends on just a small hurricane, sea level rise. It's inevitable in the future. And the idea will be to plant different kind of fauna from the beach, not everywhere, but it's normal for the economy. Miami need beach, but in some areas more sensible, to begin to think differently, you know, to plant the fauna and to move a lot of hotel more higher in the ground, in the state, you know.
Yeah, thank you very much. So yeah, we were kind of using the Joker card for this one. So I will stop sharing my screen and I will invite someone from group 1. And if Sarah, if you can share the screen with the solution that you propose.
I think that might be me.
Okay.
Yeah, Marianne will propose and Nocho will share.
Okay, great.
Shall I start? I'll just go. We looked at the if I start with the Convolture, the town that's up in the mountains, have a great deal of problems with the Convolture was the one that's facing drought, and with the Sahel, and we felt that protecting the grey water, collecting the grey water is important. I think with a lot of these, there isn't always going to be one solution. So it's just thinking through the different possibilities. But certainly that was our main one for there.
Okay, thank you very much, Marianne. So yeah, that matches with us that we use the same cards. Let's go now to group 2.
So in our group, we have Baldur, who will be reporting. Baldur, please.
Yep. From those 4 cities, our focus was then on Milan with the flash floods from the excess rainwater. And of course, we did, from the cards given, we chose the introducing more green rooftops, green roofs, as one solution for water retention and reducing the concentrated runoff. For that, also the green roofs serve as the shading and the cooling the buildings. And then actually that came from the group members many good proposals in order to with nature-based solutions to solve or to build resilience to flash floods and increasing the green area in the city, the first thing. The other, to use more non-permeable surfaces in order to use natural capacity, etc. So those things came up.
Thank you very much, Baldur. And yes, as you can see, there's different cards for each group. Let's go and see for group number 3 what they have.
Great. For our group will be Piotr with the case of Miami.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you. So with Miami, the Miami city has Miami has problems with erosion, sea inundation, abrasion, and salt intrusions. So we just assigned flood risk reduction as a solution biodiversity restoration and establishment of new recreation spaces. And also we proposed the absorbing and reusing rainwater, and also flood risk reduction and filter pollutants. So as a general solution and universal solution, we proposed nature-based solutions, and also which are included in the solutions I've read, and also green and blue infrastructure. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Piotr. So yeah, I think it's similar to what Simeon was doing, but like kind of going through a different angle of renaturalization rather than community gardens. Let's go now to group 4.
Yeah, so for group 4, I think Zavak is presenting, and I will share my screen.
Great.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great. That's great. What we discussed actually for Milan, I think that the smart agriculture systems can be fit very well indeed because of the improving food security as well as sustainability products, including reducing greenhouse gas emissions. In addition, that for the Cambodia, that to creating biological corridors will help to Cambodia as well. And I'm not going to, yeah, thank you so much. That increase species conservation and support sustainable development in high biodiversity areas, and including the Cambodia again, including water retaining gardens, ponds, and swallers. And for Miami, we also discussed that the
that's okay, Safak. Just okay. with those 2 cities, that's great.
All right,
so yeah, also climate in and around the cities, it's also offers a like good space for different solutions and to include. So yeah, in the context of because we don't have that much time, I do want to bring out something that was discussed in our group, which was like there is not one solution for a challenge. And in the case of Miami, it's like I saw that many groups were bringing two of them together, and that all of them need to be adapted to the concrete context and be targeted or like, you know, confronted from different angles. So nature-based solutions are part of wider strategies for adaptation and resilience building. I'm glad that we could use this exercise with you. As it has been described in the chat, is part of the resilience learning modules, which are also included in the background note for the training. So do look back at the background note if you want to look back at the exercise for more details and or to also use it in a workshop that you are organizing. So that will be everything from my side, and I will give back the floor to Eva to guide us.
Okay, muchas gracias, Juanca. I think it was very useful and very exciting to see how each group has really assigned different solutions to similar problems. So thank you very much for this, and I recommend that you take a look at the link that you have also shared, Juanca, and it's also in the background notes. It's very useful, and you can also apply it in your organization. So we're going to have now a 5-minute break because we're just a bit short in time, and then we will reconvene in 5 minutes, and then our colleague Elena Monteiro from the Making Cities Resilient to 30 initiative will present us some peers in the city of Malmo and also the city of Potenza. And then we will have a presentation on the policy facility of the Covenant of Mayors, a policy facility on adaptation, and a bit of debate with politicians again. So 5 minutes and then be back quickly. Thank you very much, Juan Casper, and all the facilitators from UCLG learning module and unit. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Hope everybody had some time to grab a coffee. We're gonna wrap up again. We're gonna continue the training. I hope you cannot hear the background noise I have here in the room. So I'm very pleased. My name is Elena Monteiro, like Eva introduced. I work for the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, coordinating the Making Cities Resilient 2030 initiative. Like Marlene also mentioned at the beginning, this is a global initiative, a global alliance with UN agencies, international organizations, association of municipalities, all coming together to support cities in building their resilience. The idea is that resources like this training today are available to cities who join the initiative. So I will again make an invitation to all of the decision makers and city officials here to join MCR 2030. I will share the link again on the chat and see how this initiative can support your city on your adaptation, mitigation, and resilience efforts. One of the key elements of this initiative is the peer learning. We've learned from 10 years of advocacy with the MCR campaign that cities are the best teachers, and cities that have already gone through a process of creating a resiliency strategy are in a good position to share lessons learned, what to do and what not to do, the errors and attempts that in building the resilience. And that's why we have the resilience hubs. These are cities that have committed to become mentors, to become advisors to other cities in building their resilience. And I'm very pleased today to have Alessandro Attolico, head of resilience in the province of Potenza in Italy, a province with 100 municipalities, and also Magnus Wendt from the city of Malmö in Sweden, who are here to share a little bit of their experience. I'm going to invite Magnus to come share his, if you want to put on your video. The idea here is in 5 minutes, really quickly, to share a little bit of what we've been doing on climate adaptation and mitigation. Malmö is a city that is known for its nature-based solution use, blue and green infrastructure, and you can see on the city how these solutions have been supporting the resilience building in Malmö. So over to you, Magnus. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, hello, can you all hear me? Yeah, great. Yes, I'm Magnus from the city of Malmö. We are based in southern Sweden, and we are the third largest city in Sweden, with a very close link via the bridge to Denmark and to the capital city of Denmark, Copenhagen. And I will come back to that because we are very much collaborating on a regional basis here. Malmö decided to apply to become one of the resilience hub and really getting more engaged in the work of contributing and collaborating and creating a togetherness forward-looking work on the topic of urban resilience. We were using the MCR 2030 10 essentials to really gather our resilience strategy, and we came to the conclusion that in fact the city of Malmö has a lot of different strategies that together jointly they are combined to the city of Malmö's resilience strategy, so that it consists at the moment of many different parts rather than just one binding document, but it is a combined strategy from several different departments. At the moment, and I think it will be so for the future as well, the Resilience Hub activities are hosted by the Environmental Department in Malmö. That meaning we have a special focus on climate adaptation and climate-related risk. But we, of course, are also collaborating with the other departments working on other challenges and other risks in the city, from everything from man-made incidents to social issues and more chronic stress that are on the cities. Besides working on resilience in general, Malmö has also taken up the ambition to work with the geographical area of the Baltic Sea region. And Malmö is a strong member of the Union of Baltic Sea Cities, where there is a kind of commitment and an increased interest among those cities to join the Making Cities Resilient campaign, and actually using the tools and the experiences and collaborate on these issues. That meaning we are also looking very much into the EU Commission's different instruments to create collaboration and to create a financial platform to have a long-term commitment and kind of dealing with large project regarding climate adaptation. So at the moment, Malmö is very much outreaching to different kind of collaboration, especially in Europe, but we also have a political will in the city of collaborating with cities outside Europe as well. And that's where we are at the moment. And of course, we have done many great things, I think, on resilience and on climate adaptation that we are willing to share, and being active in peer-to-peer activities, etc. But foremost, I think what is even more important is that we are willing to engage with other cities in dealing with our future projects and future challenges and risks that we see coming and that we need to deal with. And I think I'll stop there quickly.
Thank you, Magnus. I'll come back to you. It's really great to have Malmö as a resilience hub supporting other cities in the network. For all the cities here who wants to connect with Malmö as well, we will share your contact information. But this is something that is available for any city wanting to join MCR 2030 and have this peer-to-peer learning experience with the resilience hubs. I'm going to invite now Alessandro Tolico, who is the head of resilience in the province of Potenza in the south of Italy. We know Potenza has a lot of risk associated to earthquakes, but also for its geography. So could you please, Alessandro, tell us a little bit about how have you been working on assessing and adapting to climate change? Thank you. The floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Elena, for giving us the possibility to share our experience in this occasion, this event. Actually, we are, as a province of Potenza in Italy, we are working since many years now, starting with preparing for disaster management. And for this reason, in the early 2000s, we worked a lot for assessing the territory from the risk point of view. So we assess. We are located in the south of Italy and over the Apennine. So you can imagine in that part of Europe, of Italy, we are affected from many kind of risks of natural characteristics such as earthquakes, landslides, hydrogeological risk, and many other kind of threats. And but also from the human induced risk, we can count for some industrial activities. One of the biggest activity that we have is the oil extraction or the oil exploitation of we have one of the biggest oil field in Italy, and this gives the possibility to have some threats also for the population, for the environment. But so we started dealing with disaster management, and after having acquired certain experiences, in characterizing the risk. So by collecting data and regarding the territory and the population inside over the territory, we started moving to disaster risk management and to disaster risk reduction by putting all this experience in a strategic action plan, regional action plan that is drafted and implemented through the cooperation with cities. As Elena already presented at the beginning, we have 100 cities in our coverage that are very, very small. Most of them are very, very small. The biggest one is the capital city, is Potenza, is 67,000 residents, but all the other cities are very, very small. Some of them are some hundreds, have some hundreds of population. So for them, it's very, very difficult to be alone and to work alone in disaster risk management and this kind of issue. So the idea was the strategic idea that is is really politically supported, was to produce an action plan, a strategic action plan that put together all the different kind of themes regarding sustainable development, such as disaster risk reduction, so the security, the safety of the territory, and also the sustainable development and the climate change contrasting policies, in order to have a sort of guiding tool to help cities and to implement action over the territory together with the cities. This tool was adopted in 2013, and then after that we started implementing it and improving it by implementing all the different new policy making coming from the international, the EU, and the national level. And with this tool, we had the opportunity to engage with the stakeholders, with the citizen, in a sort of a very global local action that aimed at improving our resilience level. As regards climate change, in particular, especially mitigation and adaptation, we have put on the field different kinds of actions. Several million euros were invested in building heritage renewal, starting from the schools, high schools heritage. So we have implemented a lot of measures for reducing the consumption using the new source of energy, such as the renewables and other kind of improving the building itself as for reducing the consumptions. But also in the case of adaptation, a lot of activities have been made together with the cities for improving essentially the governance of the action. So the attitude of consumers as people, citizens, but also stakeholders and governments in improving the use of resources and the consumption of the energy. Now we are engaged in two different big actions, such as one is the Resilience Hub, MCR 2030 Resilience Hub, because like Malmo, we think that the international cooperation, most of our action is based on the interaction with other cities, with other countries, with other partners all over Europe and all over the world. So one of the main goals that we have is to cooperate, to partner with other cities all over the world in order to exchange experiences and improve and learn from each other. And the other one is now we are engaged in the EU adaptation mission, which means that we can use also this platform, the European platform, for improving our way to finance our action. This is the main to exchange, of course, experiences, but mainly to try to finance our action, especially at a very local level where the majority of resources are needed. These two big action that we are performing in now of course, are in the at the disposal of all the people, all the cities, the governments that want to share with us experience and want to cooperate. And this is one of the main goals that we have for the future. I can stop here if.
Thank you, Alessandro. Very, very interesting to see the vision of the province government. And I have a follow-up question to you. How do you feel that the municipalities within the province are picking up on the importance of working on their resilience and working on their adaptation plans? And how, practically speaking, have you been working with the municipalities on supporting that? We know that there is a lack of capacity in the local level, and it's very good to see a provincial government committing to support the municipalities. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, of course, our action is still in improvement, but what we have done up to now is to connect with cities and to help giving them the possibility to attract fundings for specific activities, but mainstreaming in this big action plan that we drafted and we are implementing. What we want to do is to try to reinforce this structural supporting activity, let's say it in this way, in order to give the possibility to the cities to be alone, to be self-determined in many actions. We are applying for many kind of project application at the EU level, like we did in the past for the energy sector. Now we are working on biodiversity and the enhancement of ecosystems. So the idea is to start to import some good experiences from all over the Europe and the world, in order to give the possibility to the local technicians, to the local population, to the local technical boards to be more prepared for the future challenges. This means that we have to build the know-how, we have to build the capacities, starting from the very local level and trying to give the possibility to these boards of technicians or that are really committed and really prepared for the new challenges can help for the territory. Is an improvement path that covers more years, of course, because but it is the way in which the political commitment can be maintained at a very high level if we see in the short, medium, and long term improvements on these aspects.
Excellent. Thank you, Alessandro. It's everything you mentioned on commitment, on leadership, on ownership as well. Is something that is very important when you're working with so many different stakeholders. I also have a follow-up question to Magnus from Marianne from England. Magnus, are your city collaborations including joint financial arrangements? And is it expected to bring a long-term financial return as well as an immediate and long-term benefit? Magnus.
Yes. For the city of Malmö, we are, as mentioned, we are looking into the EU funding and the possibilities that comes from different EU funding opportunities. And then we actually have a meeting here in Sweden today with a national MCR 2030 team or group, which is facilitated by our Swedish Civil Contingency Agency. And one of the discussions is around a new financial instruments in Sweden working on climate adaptation and moving from ideas and projects to real action. So indeed, there is a commitment to this, and there is, of course, then also a financial commitment from the municipality, because when we participate in these projects, they are rarely financed to 100%. There is a co-finance of 40–50% in most cases, which the city thinks is very important. I'm not sure that was the answer to all the questions, but
Thank you, Magnus. Again, what you said about connecting with the national government. It's good to see MBS supporting cities in Sweden, because also for implementation and finance, it's really important to have this backing, sometimes to give the guarantees for big funds so that we can get the climate action funding for implementation. I will ask Magnus and Alessandro to remain with us a little bit more. We will have a session for Q&A. Please keep coming the questions on the chat. I will also ask Magnus and Alessandro to share with us their strategies, any supporting material, so that we can share with all of the participants. I will hand over to Eva, who will present on the EU adaptation mission and policy facility, I'm sorry. And then we will come back for more Q&A with all of the participants. So keep coming the questions so that we can come back to this in a short while. Eva, over to you. And thank you so much for Magnus and Alessandro sharing your experience here.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Elena. If we can put the slides, the policy facility. Okay. Thank you very much, Elena. We will be sharing these slides with you as well, so don't worry, because I'm also conscious of the time. But I wanted to introduce you quickly to this facility, which is part of the Covenant of Mayors office and the Covenant of Mayors initiative. Move to the next one, please. This is an initiative that gathers now over 10,000 local and regional authorities, not only in Europe, but worldwide. This is an initiative that was born in Europe in 2008 with the aim of working on mitigation aspects. And at that time, we had some targets that we needed to comply with 20% reductions of CO2 by 2020. The interesting thing of this initiative is that it has been evolving through the years according to the different challenges that we're facing, according also to the needs of the local and regional level. So that's why we see different dates on the screen, and we can see that in 2014 we launched also the adaptation component, because originally the Covenant of Mayors had the mitigation aspect as really the core element, but throughout the years, and we've seen this morning with Jaroslav Mis's presentation, we've seen that adaptation is really as important as mitigation. So the European Commission added this component. Then in 2015, there was a relaunch of the Renew commitments, because at European level, there were some different targets to be more ambitious, to comply with more ambitious targets. So we increased the reduction target to 40% by year 2030. And we also added the energy poverty component. Then in 2016, there was the merge of the European Covenant of Mayors born in 2008 with other regions throughout the world. So the Global Covenant of Mayors was born. So it's like the umbrella of the pact of this covenant, and it now gathers over 10,000. I mean, most of them are European because it was a European initiative the basis, but it's now increased throughout the world. So now it covers all continents. And we have very, very ambitious cities. And then in 2021, there was again a relaunch of more Renew commitment, because the European Commission and also all the European institutions, they agreed on very ambitious targets, which is to achieve climate neutrality by year 2050. And then also the pillars, which were adaptation and energy poverty and mitigation, were also added to a new dimension, which is just transition. So these are, as you can see, the different phases that this initiative has followed throughout the years. And it's an initiative that is really offering a huge amount of capacity building to the local level. And there's also a website, so you can find all the information there. If we move to the next one. And also, as I did not mention, but this evolution also aimed at responding as to the Paris Agreement obligation. So we also see that at the local level, we want to take our own responsibility, regardless what member states are doing. So this is really a clear, very good example of the local level, of the local action from the bottom-up perspective. to also assist the top-down member states. Then we have the 3 pillars, which are mitigation, adaptation, and energy poverty. And with these 3 pillars, we have seen that they can be involved in the different actions at the city level. And we have here some examples where you can tackle the 3 pillars. And some examples are, for instance, municipal buildings, agriculture and forestry, energy, transport, mobility, waste, industry, production, consumption, biodiversity, emergency planning, city protection, urban planning. So in each of these sectors, we can tackle the 3 pillars in different ways. If you're a member of the Covenant of Mayors, it doesn't mean that you need to tackle these 3 pillars at the same way, with the same target year, or with the same intensity. It will depend on your local circumstances, and sometimes you want to give priority to one pillar through a number of years and maybe put more emphasis on another pillar. But the important thing is that you tackle the 3 pillars within the Just Transition framework. Can you please move to the next one? Okay, so here you have some figures. As I mentioned, we have over 10,200 signatories worldwide. Once they signed and once they commit, it's a political initiative. So the politician, the mayor, has to have this approved in their internal constituency. And once it's approved, they have a specific timing to produce action plans. It depends also on the city and the region, but sometimes it's between 1 year, 2 years, and it has been evolving throughout the years. But now we can count on 7,400 action plans covering the 3 pillars. But again, each city decides where they want to put the emphasis. There are also some criteria that you need to do a minimum of activities in one sector or another. So it's not that you will concentrate 99% of your actions on mitigation and 5% or 0.5 on the other ones. No, it has to be a bit balanced, but we are also aware that the circumstances, the situation, and there are many components that play there that make you redefine your action plans or your strategies. Then out of this, we can see that, and that's where we need some more work on adaptation. We've seen that not even 4,000 have committed to address climate change adaptation. So there's still a lot of room for improvement because only 80% have planned adaptation actions and 30% have implemented them. So there's still a lot of room for maneuver, but the good thing is that we're right on track, still room for improvement. Then the next one. Then this is why the Covenant of Mayors, through the European strategy on adaptation, launched the Policy Support Facility. And this is a program that wants to help local and regional authorities to move from planning to implementation of adaptation actions. We have seen that strategies as such are good, but now we're in the phase where we really need to see a difference on the ground and at the local level. So that's why this program is going to have different phases and also different modules. And we have 4 modules, and we will start with a pilot program from now to 2023. And there are 12 targets, member states, and you have them mentioned here. It's a European policy support facility, but that doesn't mean that the global Covenant of Mayors, which is the umbrella initiative, cannot learn from this. So this is starting at the European level, and we'll see if that can be replicated or transferred to other regions. But we start with these 12 member states. And then, can you move to the next one, please? Then we have here the 4 modules, and these 4 modules are learning from experts with a series of webinars that they are EU-wide. Of course, you can also listen to this because many of these webinars are online. So we also need to be grateful for this facility because that really allows to get more knowledge throughout the world. Then we will also have another module, which is the exchange with peers. And here, the national associations play really a key role because there are a lot of workshops organized at the national level. Then we have the implementation with experts. And here, there's a technical assistance on adaptation action. The technical assistance is one of the core elements of the initiative. at the European level or worldwide, because we have seen, and also through your comments that you put in for this training, we have seen that the technical assistance is extremely needed, and sometimes it's even more welcome than any financing facilities. I mean, financing is extremely useful, is needed, but sometimes learning and knowing and learning how to do things is even more valuable, at least in the long run. So that's why the implementation with the assistance of experts is crucial. And then that's going to be a call for cities and regions that can apply for this. And, yeah. And then the deadline for this is 22nd of June. And then the other module is showcase of lessons learned, and there will be a publication very soon. Just move to the next one, please. Yeah, and then I don't know how much time I've got left, but I will quickly. We have the national workshops, which I said that they are going to build capacity, and they're going to run until next year. And it's going to be in-person meetings, and this is going to respond to the, local needs and learn from each other. Next one, please. Yeah. This technical assistance, as I said, is crucial, and this is going to provide expertise and support to the participants, and it will be also including visits by experts, so you will really work on the ground. And there's a deadline to apply for this technical assistance. And next one, please. As I said, the lessons learned and showcase will also be included in an interactive publication. Yep. The next one. Yeah. And then these are the next steps that you can just note down in your agendas. Open calls will close on 22nd of June. The national workshops for those with the similar challenges will also allow them to learn from each other. The publications will be launched very soon. And then you can also access the Covenant of Mayors website. Go to the next one. Yeah. Through either the website there, eumayors.eu, or through direct contact emails that I have put here. I have to say that another colleague of mine, Pedro, was supposed to be making these presentations, but for family reasons, he could not join at last minute, but I'm just presenting this on his behalf, so you know it. So I'm happy to respond to any questions you may have. Thank you very much, Elena.
Thank you, Eva. I'm going to hand over to Sarah, who will moderate the Q&A and wrap up this session.
Thank you very much, Elena, and thank you very much, Eva, and in particular, of course, to our two hubs. I think many of the questions were already answered, and I think it was really very insightful, as you all say. We always come back to learning of the experience. And maybe then here looking a little bit into also what comes up now in the chat. We have Valdo here from C40, and we know all in the climate agenda, which is a relatively young agenda. I think in the morning we heard that only the story from 92 on, but today, 16th of June, 50 years ago, was the first United Nations conference on environment and human well-being. And this was a reason why UNEP was launched and the United Nations went into this field. And I think where we are now, it's an enormous achievement, in particular because this agenda of climate is full of evidence, and really we are now at a point where science plays a lot of a very important role, and the climate agenda is, I think, Ronan Dantec-Line highlighted. We need very clear targets, we need clear indicators, we need clear data, and we have now a lot of commitment. We have thousands of cities joining our campaign, which we are really proud of, the MCR, and the Now Making Cities Resilience, not only a campaign. We also have the Global Covenant. But how do we measure this impact of the activities? We are, of course, the planning, we know it's one point. We need action, we need, and there is action of cities. So maybe Valdur, one piece of advice, 1 minute of advice of the C40, which has so much evidence collected, but of course in large cities, This is a very different story than when you imagine a small city in a dry area of Spain, let's say. So what kind of advice would you give them to the data collection to break really down all the targets into policies? Should they measure their waste services? So what kind of angles would you advise? Baldur, if you are there, I would like you to give a little bit of insight. Baldur from C40.
Sorry, actually I'm not from the C40, but from the Council of the Baltic Sea States, and we are working a lot on the macro-regional level to support cities and regions and macro-regional stakeholders, whether academia or businesses or city associations, etc., to build capacity on climate mitigation and adaptation. If we worked for the national level earlier more, then now the focus has really went to the local level, and we are at the moment just preparing a guide for the climate adaptation planning for the municipalities. It's very much a region specific because the climate impacts are really based on the regional or local conditions. But the advice is that really don't measure the money spent or number of people achieved with your learning measure or the awareness raising measure or a investment into the measures to build resilience, but really measure the change. How many people are lesser prone on the risks you have identified due to the measures you are taking, etc., etc. So that's the general advice. But again, there is experience. There is experience globally, and just you look around, and I would suggest to start from those two adaptation portals. We Adapt, which is the global one, and then the Climate Adapt of the EU knowledge portals, where you can start looking for also how the other cities and regions are starting to measure the progress of implementing the adaptation measures.
Thank you very much, Baldur, and definitely good advice. And I see also Magnus has raised his hand. And Magnus, as you are from a city and you see the different response, because this is a little bit the point we would like just to highlight, that we have seen so much possibility, information, planning, science, all is in place. But the responses, the main responses, we can measure the impact of climate adaptation policies. Maybe you could come to this, but of course you also raise your hand. Please make your point. Magnus?
Thank you. Well, my point on this, that on the city scale, on the very local level, of course, we are measuring things on a very concrete level. So, for example, the city of Malmö has changed its strategy about dealing with rainwater and cloudburst, etc. So instead of having all the water going down in the sewage systems, we are now having a strategy of using a surface open sewage system combined with other actions like green roofs to slow down the water, etc., etc. And that has been measured on different city districts before the action was taken, and what kind of impact have it had over the last couple of years when we have had new heavy rainfalls. So from a city scale, it's kind of we transform the strategies into different actions, and then we can measure the impact of those actions, those measures, real measures taken. And then we can go back and say, okay, this change in our strategies of dealing with the challenges and problem we have at hand, we can actually prove and showcase that the investment has been beneficial for us. And then we can elaborate and further strengthen our strategy and be confident that these kind of actions actually have an impact, and that can become to cities policies and a stronger instrument where we're collaborating with the real estate sector, those who are building new apartments and houses, etc. And in that way, yes, we can measure the impact, but we need to go down to the concrete actions to have proof and evidence that is beneficial for us, because that creates some kind of confidence that those measures are having the real impact and the impact we would like to see. So from a city scale, we are perhaps not taking this overall picture of having these strategies a real impact, but we're trying to measure it on the concrete actions.
Yeah, thank you very much, and very true. And I think that's exactly probably the chapter we have ahead of us when we go to smaller scale, to smaller city. We have this integrated approach almost automatically. Now, as smaller the city, as more closed as a different department to look and this impact, as you were just saying. And if it's water, if it's waste, well, there are many parts. We have now no time to go into it, but thank you very much for these points. And also thanks you very much, all the participants, for this very rich sharing. I recall that this learning opportunity is in particular for Europe, so you understand the European context. Don't worry, we will also do more international work together with MCR and the UNDRR, but today this was a little bit our approach. Tomorrow again we will look into financing, we will get more concrete, and for today I would just ask Marianne to give us a last word, because we need to close our session. So thank you very much. And Marianne, if you would like to close.
Thank you very much indeed to everybody. It's been a really stimulating discussion. I've so enjoyed and learned from the other participants as well as our speakers. It's wonderful that we are taking such a wide view right across Europe and indeed today across the world, with all the different participants from different fields. So a huge thank you for that. I'm Marianne Overton. I'm the vice chairman of the Local Government Association in England, and also one of the spokesmen for climate and environmental issues. I get to just do a little bit of a summary of some of the conclusions that I learned, and then thank the people who've been organizing today. So just a few comments from the discussions. I think it was really helpful at the beginning to have the view from the UCLG and the UN about making cities resilient. Thank you very much to Jaroslav Misiak from Venice, who's talking about the adaptations and giving us such a wealth of sources of information. I feel that's a real encyclopedia that we've now got at our fingertips. So a huge thank you for that, a really good opening speech. And then also I really appreciated that we had Roman Dantek talking about the European impact and how that affects us, and picking up some important points. The renaturing pathways was a very good exercise and just reminds us just how many things we can do, and we should like to do all of them, of course, but it's about trying to pick the ones and spend most on the ones that we can be most effective with. And that's why I'm thinking that one of the things I'd still like us to do more of is to be able to measure the impacts of our actions, so that we can genuinely follow that graph of where we are in the process of reaching our goals. Really appreciated from Magnus Malmo talking about the importance of collaboration, not just across the bridge to Denmark from Sweden, but also looking much wider afield. And there are ways, we talk in UK quite a lot about the green economy, how we see these investments as actually an economic advantage for our countries as well as a benefit to the environment. And in that way, we are starting to pick up some of those deniers, the climate deniers, those people who don't believe the science and actually think we're just spending money. This is why we've turned that around to talk much more about the green economy, how many ways we can utilize this to actually make a better economy that is more sustainable for the long-term future of our planet. Also, a huge thank you to Alessandra, who talked about the 100 cities and the disaster risk management and how important that is. And that's very much on our agenda, of course. Thank you to Eva for the talk on the Covenant of Mayors. This is such a useful forum for us, and I think that we will all be able to tap into that successfully. So a huge thank you for that. So I think I've covered most of the main issues, and I want to pick up some of the points for the future. I think we're going to be concentrating on actually tomorrow. I think it's going to be a really exciting day. So I look forward very much to that. And I think what we're building is really inspirational leadership today. So thank you very much indeed to our organizers as well. So thank you for the CEMR PLATFORMA, to the UN Office of Disaster Reduction, Making Cities Resilient, and to the UCLG, the Learning Unit, who've been working together to organize today. And that's in particular Elena Monteiro in London. Thank you to Juan Juarez and Sarah Hoflich in Barcelona, and to Eva Baños, who's led us through today from Brussels. So a huge thank you to all our organizers and to you for participating. And we look forward to an exciting day tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marianne, and thanks to all our partners. This is through partnership, and we hope to count on you in the future. We also, of course, are happy so many of you wanting to continue and follow up with us. So see you tomorrow.
See you. Thank you.
See you tomorrow.
Bye. See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. See you tomorrow.